Hey guys, coming in with another movie review for you guys, and this one we're reviewing, this was a movie that I was hoping would be really good. However, of course I was worried because, once again, it's a January movie, and January typically isn't all that great, so I was a bit worried about this movie, but the trailers really impressed me. I actually thought the trailers looked really good, and I was honestly really interested in seeing how this movie would be, and that movie is The Fifth Wave. The Fifth Wave, of course, just came out, and I was very interested in seeing how this movie was going to be, but then it started getting really bad reviews, and I just wanted this movie hoping that I would get some enjoyment out of it, and overall, The Fifth Wave, I will say that The Fifth Wave is not a terrible movie. It's just, I feel, a very mediocre and missed opportunity. There's really nothing new about this movie, and it's also a very forgettable movie. I'll talk about that, but let's get to the plot of The Fifth Wave, which the plot of this movie, I do have to say, is very interesting. I definitely really do like the plots of what's going on here. Basically, we see that there are these aliens that have come down to Earth. Basically, they're known as the Others. There have been 5 waves that basically have gotten rid of many resources. One of the waves took away electronics and other, electronics and power and things like that. Other ones, it's killed many people. The 4th wave was like earthquakes and things like that, and there is an incoming 5th wave, and they don't know what it's gonna bring. So obviously that fear is still there. But we basically focus on this girl Cassie and her family, and they're trying to do whatever they can to survive. And one day, her brother, Sam, basically, they end up going through this base pretty much because there's this, her brother's taken by, the army, basically, her brother's taken by the army for care and protection, and basically Cassie gets separated and she has to find her brother, and basically the rest of the movie is the search for her brother, and that's basically a plot of The Fifth Wave. But there are other things in this movie, and while it tries to sound original, it really isn't, and I'll get into that. But first, let's get to the good stuff about this movie, because there is some good stuff that I definitely will talk about. Let's get to the acting here. The acting, for the most part, is pretty mediocre. The one thing that I think really does save this movie is Chloë Grace Moretz. I mean, let me just say that, in my opinion, she's one of the best actresses working today. I've never seen Chloë Grace Moretz give a bad performance, and even in bad movies, I've still seen her do a very good job, and here, this is no exception. She does a very good job as this role of Cassie Sullivan. And yes, I will say, this character is something we've seen before. I mean, she's Katniss Everdeen, she's, she's Triss from Divergent, she's every character that you have seen in these teen adult, young adult, science fiction novels we've seen before. There's really nothing new about her character. I just really think Chloë Grace Moretz really sold that emotional attitude very well. That emotion, you really saw her determination to save her brother. She wanted whatever she could to save him, and I definitely really like seeing that. There were some times where I thought she did get a bit over the top, but it's not her fault. I really feel it's the script that's the problem. She as a character is very well fleshed out. I definitely will say that. Problem is, she's the only character I really cared about in this movie. Everyone else I really didn't care about. Nick Robinson as Ben Parrish was just very plain, a very plain character. He's supposed to be like her love interest in the movie. I found him to be very plain and simply just a guy that's there to be a love interest. The boy that played her brother, Ron Livingston, I thought he did an okay job. Oliver, definitely, I thought he did an okay job. Well, actually, no, Oliver's not the one, but I thought, definitely, Zackary Arthur, the one that played her brother, I think he did an okay job overall. Maria Bello was fine in this movie. Maika Monroe, I've seen Maika Monroe before. She had basically nothing to do here. I really felt that she really had nothing to do as Ringer. And then Alex Rowe as Evan. The other boy Cassie is with is literally, I think, only here so they could have a love triangle. And I really thought that his acting was very wooden. I didn't care about his character. I couldn't get into his character. However, without a doubt, in my opinion, the worst performance in this movie comes from Liev Schreiber. Now, Liev Schreiber has done a very good job. In fact, he was incredible in Spotlight. If you haven't seen him in that, check it out. But this is very much an Eddie Redmayne situation. Now, Liev Schreiber is nowhere near as bad as Eddie Redmayne Jupiter Ascending. It's just his character is literally here to be a plot device. He's here to give information about what's going on, and then he just goes away. And whenever his character showed up, I'm like, oh great, more exposition. Literally, this is his character. This is what's going on, we're going to tell you what's going on, and this is why you should care. And it's ridiculous. He talks in these very long, unnecessarily long exposition, and that's all he does in the movie. He doesn't really do anything, and I found his character to be very unnecessary. It just seemed like they needed to explain everything, and they don't. They don't need to really explain what's going on, because I can tell what's going on. I'm not an idiot, and the movie makes it seem like we need to know everything that's going on. I definitely didn't like that, and Liev Schreiber was definitely a problem with that. The directing here by Jake Blakeson, I thought was fine. I didn't really have a problem with the tone of the movie. I thought the dark tone was perfectly fine here. But again, I've seen that tone a million times. The movie really didn't do anything different with it. The biggest problem with this movie, without a doubt, is the screenplay. Now, I will say, the first, 35 minutes of this movie, I thought were actually pretty good. I was really getting into the story. I definitely found it very interesting. They really explored her family life very well. They showed the situation that they were going through. Just all of it I found to be very compelling. I really enjoyed it. The problem is, when the movie tries to focus on the military, I did not give a shit what was going on there, because I've seen it in so many other movies. There's nothing original about this movie. Literally, you could give me every scene in this movie, and I could be like, oh, that scene is based off of this. That's based off of that. They don't try to do anything new with it, and it really disappointed me. I really wanted something different out of this, and I really didn't get it. And the movie tries to do something different with the plot, but it really doesn't work. And eventually, this movie just turned into another teen romance. I mean, there's this ridiculous subplot, and I don't understand why we need it. Why do we need a love triangle in this movie? First of all, it comes out of nowhere. It feels completely out of place when it happens, and I don't understand why it's there. They also try to do, like I said, this military subplot, and it really doesn't work, and it's really not interesting at all. And every time we cut to it, now there were some good scenes there. Like, there's this one scene where the kids are on edge, the soldiers are on edge, because they think that one of the soldiers there could be an other, and that was a very interesting scene. It's just so many of the scenes are very, very boring, and there's way too much narration as well. Again, I don't need everything explained to me. I like movies where they don't explain everything, and they want the audience to kind of think about what's going on. It just makes for a much more compelling story, and it really didn't work here. I think that there was way too much exposition in this movie. There was way too much to deal with, and I definitely didn't like that. Things that are supposed to feel big don't feel big here, because I just saw them coming. The twist that they do in this movie is a good twist. I'm not gonna lie. It's a very good twist. It's just, again, it doesn't feel big because we don't care about the characters that's happening to. And the movie really, I don't think, cared as much about the characters. There are some scenes here that I don't know what they were thinking. Literally, there are scenes here that I think are just here to appeal to teenage girls, because they know that the people that saw Hunger Games and the people that saw Divergent, they're gonna see this movie, and what are they gonna want? They're gonna want to see attractive guys. I mean, yeah, that's what these movies are for. They're for attractive guys. It's really stupid. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard before, but there is a scene where Chloë Grace Moretz, she sees one of the guys' shirts off, and she stares at him like he's from, like, a porno or something. I mean, that's what we get out of here, and the dialogue here really wasn't that great, and there were parts of the movie that I will admit was very boring. I really felt compelled to skip this movie at times, but I didn't want to, because I want to stay invested. I want to see what happened, and I didn't want to miss something important. It's just a lot of what happened I really didn't find interesting. The love story that's created wasn't interesting. The military stuff, just all of it I found to be very boring, and I really couldn't latch onto this story, and eventually it kind of just took me out of it. And I will say that by the end, I did start to get into it, but I don't want a sequel to this movie. I really don't. I don't really want a sequel, because I don't feel we need one. There's gonna be one, but I don't really think we need one, and I don't really know what else they could do with this story. I will definitely say that. The cinematography here, I will say, was very good. I definitely really like some of the action scenes. There are actually some very intense action scenes in this film, and I definitely felt it. But something I definitely do have to complain about is that there were times where I couldn't see shit. I mean, I don't know what was going on, but in dark scenes, you can barely see what was going on in this movie, and it was very hard to tell what was going on and who was speaking. I mean, obviously I could tell by the voices, but the cinematography I thought was really good in some places, and then in dark scenes it really did not look good, and it really, you couldn't see anything, and that's a big problem. Obviously, you need to see what's going on, and they really didn't do a good job of showing what was going on. I thought though the cinematography overall, it was fine. It wasn't anything amazing, but it was still pretty good. The score I definitely really like. I really did like the score of this movie. The editing, I felt this movie was definitely way too slow. It's very slow paced, and it did not need to be as slow paced as it was. It takes her brother 30 minutes to get kidnapped, and after that happens, well, get separated from her, and after that happens, it just doesn't become as interesting, and the story really slows down for that, and it really took me a long time to get back into it. I'm like, you know what, I'm very bored right now, and I really want to stay into it, but it was very hard to do, and unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why the movie didn't work as well. Now, I do want to talk spoilers because I do want to talk about the twist in this movie and what I think could happen in the sequels if they do that. If you guys haven't seen The Fifth Wave and you want to, check it out. I guess I would recommend it overall. I honestly, I can't recommend it. I will definitely say that, but if you do want to check it out, you can, and you haven't seen it already and you want to see it, then don't watch the rest of this review. Okay. So, of course, we find out in the movie that the Fifth Wave is actually the government, and that the government are basically sending these kids out there to eliminate the rest of the Earth survivors by misleading them. And that is a very good plot device. I definitely will say that. I really do like that twist, but come on, that's nothing new. I mean, the government controlling it, we've seen it before. We've seen it in Hunger Games. That's nothing new. However, I really do feel because there's going to be a sequel, there definitely is more going on here, and I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen with that. But the way the movie ended, they really didn't seem like they were setting up a sequel. I mean, we know that obviously they're out there and what could happen, but it really didn't seem like they were trying to set up anything. They definitely are probably going to do a sequel because I know they got the license to the whole trilogy, so we'll have to see what happens with that. But overall, guys, The Fifth Wave was very mediocre. I really wanted more from this movie, and they set things up very well. It's just, I've seen movies like this so many times that it's very hard to impress me when we have so many of these adult, young adult fiction novels coming out, and they're not all great. They really aren't all that interesting, and they're all very similar. And because that, I'm going to have to give The Fifth Wave a 2.5 out of 5 or a C-. Overall, I can't really recommend it. I'll say this, if you're a fan of The Hunger Games and Divergent, maybe you'll like this, but I don't know, I feel like even if you're fans of that, you might be taken out of this, because I really didn't find it all that interesting, and that's really why I can't really say too much about it. But overall, guys, let me know what you guys thought of The Fifth Wave. If you have seen it, love to hear your thoughts on it. And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of American Crime, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.